afraid of making mistakes because you're going to do it, and as long as you do that, learn from those mistakes.
Try to have fun while you're doing it and really enjoy your friends and have a good experience.
Just give your opinion and be super confident, because at the end of the day, that's going to get respect from your other delegates, and that's going to lead to a resolution. So.
Present 1 or 2 points, be able to get your point across, and you guys will have a great day.
And the realization that I've come to is that there really isn't any difference between the average delegate and the great delegate besides confidence. In many cases, the average delegate actually knows way more about the issue than the great delegate, yet, the great delegate seems so much better just because they portray what little points they have with confidence.
It is not right for the United States to be doing many things that they have, like launching missile strikes, because they are just thinking that something's happening, then just acting on it without the consent of any other nations or the UN.
I think that although Syria is very unstable, we should still try and resolve this solution before it can turn into a war.
Ethiopia is in support of the Kurds. However, we feel like we need to find a compromise between us together, and we are open-minded and very excited to see what we can come up with together.
We will not get anything done by screaming at each other or threatening with weapons. We need to help the people. That includes the Kurds. That includes the Syrian people. But we need to do that in a peaceful way.
We believe that Assad must go. We also believe and are against the use of chemical weapons, but we don't believe that an attack, as the United States have done, by launching missiles in Syria's direction, is the right way to go.
And I personally will work to try to get the Russian Federation, the People's Republic of China, the US, the UK, and France all on board with this.
The People's Republic of China strongly stands with Russia. We believe that we cannot go against Assad and violate the sovereignty of Syria.
Moderated caucus with a 1-minute speaking time on the topic of the Kurds. All those in favor, raise your placards.
We would like to think of a compromise that would allow the Turkish government to both either share or move the Kurdish people into new land without the brutal slaughter of the Kurdish people.
This debate needs to be about compromising and not about threatening with veto power. Not about threatening with missiles. Not about insulting each other. We need a compromise.
And if we don't solve this fast, many people may die.
Delegate of Russia.
I believe that we should support the Kurds. I mean, the Kurds are some of the only religious majorities to not have a kingdom of their own. They deserve this land.
Because if they don't have a home, then they're just going to keep getting slaughtered.
We, as the United States, believe that the ideal solution for this would be an independent Kurdistan, but we understand that that would upset the delegation from Turkey and Syria, and realize that that might be what we think is the best, but might not be the most practical situation. Thank you.
You kind of have a right to try and get a new government in power and make a better life for your family after the government that's currently in power of your country is bombing its own people, it's bombing your family, and it's putting your children and the rest of your family in danger.
It's a crime for a crime. It's like an eye for an eye. It all cancels out.
This council is brought together not to bicker over what to do with Syria, but to help Syria rebuild itself and grow as a country.
What the United States believe is that the government is the reason that this war is going on, and if we put a stop to the government right now, and we put a stop to Assad, then that'll be a temporary solution until we can figure out a better solution.
Disposing of the government in a situation like this is the opposite of what we want to do.
It's not our place as France, or as Ethiopia, or as the United States, or as China, to be meddling in the affairs of the Syrian government.
And if we stop the funding to the rebels, then the government's going to have all the power. And especially during these negotiations, are we just allowing the government to take control over its country and oppress them once again?
Russia is simply helping an ally, Syria, just as the United States would help like the United Kingdom.
And the topic of who is to lead the country is not relevant while talking about terrorists.
A ceasefire also includes the halt of military funding to any rebel groups. I agree with Russia in this point.
If there's a ceasefire, there might not be as much of an incentive to actually come to a solution as quickly. And I think that we need to come to a solution as quickly as possible without too many steps in the way.
The chair would smile favorably upon a moderated caucus discussing Turkey's involvement in Syria.
Turkey has publicly announced its intentions to continue its operations until it reaches the Iraqi border. And if that's not a clear violation of sovereignty, I don't know what is.
As a response to the previous statement made by the Russian Federation, I would like to remind them that they made a egregious violation of sovereignty of Ukraine back in 2014 in Crimea. They don't have any kind of place to talk about violation of sovereignty.
Turkey, you say you want peace. How are you going to accomplish peace? By invading Syria and killing these Kurdish rebel groups. They are proved to be helpful. They are helping us to fight ISIS. They're standing up for their basic human rights that Bashar al-Assad is not giving them. He is releasing chemical weapons on them, sending all these troops to war. And you're supporting this?
We can see that their intentions of only targeting terrorists and not civilians are obviously not working. As France pointed out, 68 civilians have been killed, 21 of which are children. So there needs to be some sort of agreement between the Syrian government or dialogue between the Syrian government and the Turkish government to make sure that this is just Turkey trying to clear their border and not Turkey trying to invade Syria and kill civilians.
This is a gross oversimplification of what's happening in Operation Olive Branch. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring back peace and stability to the northern regions of Syria.
If you want to start working on resolutions, the chair would greatly smile upon that.
Would actually, after a long time, be a good long-time investment for us, seeing as they would become tax-paying citizens and would offer us additional money to our government and help us succeed.
Who is paying for this travel? I ask you, is it the barely stable country of Cote d'Ivoire? Is it the murderous Turkish government? Is it the US who just doesn't seem to want to do it? Is it China who is not related in this issue? It's not Kuwait, I can tell you that. Who is paying for this? Is it Kazakhstan? Are you going to throw your economy under the bus to support these people? I want to support these people, but this is unrealistic, my fellow delegates. So I ask, who is paying for this?
Our plan, known as Operation Olive Branch, would get rid of all terror nests and clean the region of the trouble posed by terror completely.
We've built borders to further ensure security and has prevented terrorists from reaching Turkey.
focus is to get Turkey out of Syria, and I do not see any way in which this resolution does that.
If you want to have a bill that pushes Turkey out of Syria, you should make a resolution that does that, because that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is to get people talking.
Many countries here would like to get Turkey out of Syria. There is no good way to do that. We cannot use military power, as that would not be effective. We cannot use money, as that would also not be effective. The only possible way we can think of is through negotiation.
Why would they ever agree to giving them any slice of their land?
Almost no Turkish people inhabit that area. It's almost all Kurdish people. Yes, Lily?
I would just ask, how will you get the countries to give up land like that? Because no country is willing to just give up land, whether it's inhabited or not.
We will write an incentive for the countries that are currently occupied by the Kurdish people.
Here we have an official statement relayed by us as Turkey on our involvement in Kurdistan. We intend to dissipate any threats to border security that the Kurds may pose.
We denounce the United States' role in supporting the Kurdish operation, which only stands as a threat against our own sovereignty.
Why are you invading a country if all you want is to stop them from invading you?
We like to look at this as us defending our own country.
And with this, we will return to regularly scheduled parliamentary debate.
You can motion for cloture or to move to voting procedure. And at that point, we'll take a vote to move into voting procedure, which will require only a 1/2 majority, and proceed to vote on the measure, remembering that any P5 member that votes against it will count as a veto. We will vote on the only motion on the floor at this time, a 5-minute moderated caucus with 30-second speaking time on the topic of the Turkish invasion of northern Syria.
Turkey stated if they're in a place of war against Kurds, what makes you think they would want to give up land whatsoever? So you have to rethink how you're going to get the land from all those countries.
So part one of our resolution would be peace talks and diplomatic resolutions.
Anybody can live there, and only P5 and Sweden will provide the troops to support the Kurdish areas, and we will provide humanitarian and military aid without disrupting the Kurds.
Do you guys have proof that Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran would be willing to give up part of their land to create an area?
So anybody can live there. Anybody. Currently, that area where the Kurds live, it's military disrupted. There's only the Kurds living there, and there's too much violence. Now in this area, it will be supported by police forces. The military will be surrounding it and making sure that those police forces are good. And anybody can enter. Syrians can be there. Turks can be there.
Part of Operation Olive Branch is attacking Afrin. How will you get Turkey just to pack up and leave with almost with no questions asked?
Turkey would not be willing. They would not continue before the powers of the world are saying you should stop doing this.
Motion for a straw poll. Okay. That motion is in order. Other points or motions on the floor? All those with generally negative sentiments towards the working paper, please raise your placard now.
Our bill proposes that Assad would be tried for his war crimes against his people, and during that time that he was being tried, he would remain president of Syria. However, if he wasn't convicted, things would just go on as they were. If he was convicted, then there would be a special election held, and during that special election, he would still be president. However, once it was done, he would have to step down, and whoever won special election would be the president.
Peace talks and diplomatic cooperation have not been working. Turkey knows because we have been present at all of the major peace talks regarding the Syrian civil war. That is why we deemed it necessary to recently take direct action to ensure that our borders could be secure. That is why we are doing what we can to prevent Kurdish terrorists from coming into our country and decimating not only our public infrastructure, but ruining the lives of Turkish citizens.
But you are invading Syria's sovereignty, so what do you think about that?
It is Kurdish forces and Kurdish people who have taken control of this region, and as such, the Syrian government does not have influence over this region. That is why we are doing what we can to ensure these terrorists do not come into our country.
While Turkey is shooting at the YPG, they might be willing to talk negotiations. But what makes you think the YPG, while being killed by the day, is going to want to enter a peaceful negotiation with Turkey?
It will simply stop bloodshed and bring all the parties to a negotiating table where they will hopefully be able to find a lasting peace agreement that will stop all bloodshed in this region, which is ultimately all of our goals.
Okay, 1. Note that the United States has been interfering with Syria. Terrorism has risen. The United States has openly funded terrorist groups like the Syrian rebels.
It recognizes that Turkey has invaded Syria's sovereignty and broken laws set by the UN.
3. Understands that certain actions must be made to prevent a genocide of Turkish Kurds.
Who specifically in the government receives those $20 billion?
We really hope that the Syrian government will use this money on their people. That's what we're telling them to use it on, but Then again, the United Nations cannot control any country. That's not in our rights.
Because it actually provides them with a stable economy and a stable workforce that will in turn help Syria thrive.
We need to figure out the resolution situation. So if you've not yet sent your resolution to us, we will have an unmod right now to set. So please send your resolutions to us. We'll vote on them and hopefully pass them.
Yeah, 1 minute unmod.
Oh yeah, now I'm playing.
No, they're
like, Delegates, we are going to move into a rapid fire debate, starting with Resolution 3.0, which I will now read. Recognizing the disruption and turmoil caused by the Syrian civil war, urging a quick and lasting solution to the situation, noting the ongoing conflict between the Assad regime and rebel groups.
The first step would be to establish negotiations between not only the Syrian government, but all of the rebel groups involved. My resolution calls for a meeting between the Syrian government and leaders of neighboring countries to discuss the Islamic State in Syria, which is something that we really haven't focused on today, and something that is a really big problem.
We've already tried to have peace talks between the rebels and the government, and they've fallen through and not worked. So I don't see what the real point of this is.
The United States fully supports this resolution because we believe that it's important to continue these negotiations, and the fact that it's held in Kazakhstan, a common ground where neither Turkey or the Kurds have rule over, is good.
But this addresses not only the problem between the Kurds and Turkey, but also the greater problems such as dealing with ISIS.
I personally don't see anything too bad about this bill. I think it has good intentions and it's pretty well crafted. I think that we could easily pass this bill. It may not lead to any true, large solutions that we can clearly see, but it still will lead to some kind of talks and some kind of negotiations going on. So I think we should support this bill.
France just feels that the negotiations will be more effective and will cater to more groups if there is a representative for the CJTF-OIR.
All those in favor of passing this resolution, please raise your clappers down.
Trying to eat.
I don't even care.
Stay unanimous.
All those opposed? This resolution passes.
Point of information. It took us an entire class year to pass that bill in 5 minutes.
Motion for a revote.
All those in favor of this bill? Or this resolution?
All those in favor? All those.
I got it. Okay, due to a no vote by multiple P5 countries, this resolution fails. Alright. Is there a motion to close debate?
Please, submit your mark.
Debate is now closed.